Anthony Albanese was 60 on the 2nd of March. Incidentally, the Treasurer has a birthday on the same date, albeit 15 years younger. However, a brilliant piece of writing and research by Vicky Campion last Saturday for News Limited deserves wider dissemination. Unfortunately, it is about character. Vicky Campion ploughed through the Hansards to discover that in 1998, in a debate on the then Prime Minister John Howard's leadership, Anthony Albanese attacked Mr Howard's age, then 60, and his height, 176.5 centimetres. According to Hansard, Mr Albanese, then 35, lacerated Prime Minister John Howard as being a fossil, a man small in every sense, a little man, an anachronism belonging to museums and historical texts, too old to serve, who, according to Mr Albanese, in Hansard, quote, probably wishes good old Ming had dosed the country with formaldehyde when he had the chance, unquote. It's pretty ugly imagery by the current Prime Minister. As Vicky Campion wrote at 35, Mr Albanese etched heightism and ageism into Hansard, quote, proving youth is no guarantee of a tolerant or accepting mind, unquote. Rightly, wrote Vicky Campion, and I quote, does 1.5 centimetres, the only difference between you and Howard today, give you all these rights to weaponise personal, physical insults? Are you such a supreme specimen, she asks, that you've never considered saying sorry? Attacking a person's body, not the policy, is the most unsophisticated form of debate, unquote. Disturbingly, Vicky Campion alerts us to the fact that Mr Albanese reposted a video of the speech on Facebook only 5 years ago. Vicky Campion rightly concluding that, quote, in 20 years, did you never temper your views to such an extent as to offer an apology? If it was exuberance then, what is it now, apart from discrimination? Well, as Vicky scarifyingly observes of Mr Albanese, quote, hopefully now you can recognise that 178 centimetres, you being 1.5 centimetres taller, doesn't make you a comparative physical Adonis, unquote. But disturbingly, Mr Albanese in 1999, a year later, repeated the line that, quote, anachronisms belong in museums and historical texts, certainly not in Parliament or in leadership positions, unquote. And he called the gentleman, John Howard, quote, the voice of the impotent, who, quote, never escaped from what Barry Humphries refers to as the age of Laminex, unquote. Vicky Campion reminds Mr Albanese that his mentor, Tom Uren, a veteran of Australia's political left, remained uncriticised then by Mr Albanese in the Parliament, even though Mr Uren was over 70. Vicky Campion reminds the current Prime Minister that he was a member of the Parliament when Mr Howard passed the Age Discrimination Act, making us the first country in the world to appoint an Age Discrimination Commissioner, even though I might add, people in the workplace are still discriminated against on the basis of age. But pleasingly, in Vicky Campion's brilliant piece, she reminds us that in olden days, members of Parliament had a way of dealing with the condescending utterances of people like Anthony Albanese. And she reminds us, and she's done some homework and some research, Vicky, she reminds us of Prime Minister George Reid, who was the Prime Minister of Australia from 1904 to 1905, the fourth Prime Minister of Australia. He had previously been Premier of New South Wales. Well, someone in the Parliament heckled Prime Minister George Reid about his body shape. He was what you could call rotund. The heckler in the Parliament asked the Prime Minister Reid what he was going to call it. Prime Minister Reid replied, if it's a boy, I'll call it after myself. If it's a girl, I'll call it Victoria. But if, as I strongly suspect, it's nothing but piss and wind, I'll name it after you. Well, Vicky Campion reminded us that the Anthony Albanese of yesteryear criticised John Howard for repeatedly, quote, bringing up his past. In every performance at Albanese, all we get are his life's grievances, the accumulated bitterness of the bile of 13 long years in opposition, unquote. This is anything but the Albo who presents himself as this kind conciliator. Anthony Albanese condemned John Howard for not meeting the Spice Girls, taking it as an attack on, quote, the youth of Australia. But as Vicky Campion writes, Howard wasn't dazzled by red carpet celebrities. He never got caught up in parties. That's why his supporters were known as Howard's battlers. Unlike you, writes Vicky, referring to Mr Albanese, Howard didn't rush to the red carpet at awards nights and premieres with musicians, actors and TikTok stars, or engaged celebrities such as the former LA Lakers centre Shaquille O'Neal into The Voice, unquote. And then reminding Mr Albanese of the brutality of politics in which your own language can return to identify your hypocrisy, writes Vicky Campion, quote, after smashing Howard for his makeover, his dental work, his eyebrows and new glasses, ask yourself, Mr Albanese, would you have been comfortable on that red carpet at the GQ Awards or the Hamilton premiere without your capped teeth and your styled eyebrows and hair?